Hi there, I'm Marla. I opened my home to family, thinking love would protect me, but instead I found betrayal carved into every smile. My sister faked a pregnancy. My husband hired a private investigator to follow me. My own mother leaked my mental health records, all to paint me as unstable. How do you survive when the people who claim to love you are the ones sharpening the knives? Have you ever felt like the outsider in your own home? That the people closest to you were playing a game you didn't know you were in? What time are you listening to this, and where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. I'd love to know how my story hits you. The phone rang just past midnight. I almost didn't pick up. Greg was asleep beside me, the dog curled at his feet, but something about the silence between rings felt urgent. I answered on the third try. It was Lana, sobbing, choking on her own words. "He kicked me out, Marla," she said. "I'm pregnant." The words didn't land right away. She repeated them like a spell. Pregnant, alone, nowhere to go. I hesitated, every instinct screaming that this was just another one of her ploys, another Lana moment. But I said she could stay. For now, I added, mostly for myself. She showed up the next morning in a coat that looked designer and boots that had never touched snow. Her mascara hadn't even smudged. She hugged me like nothing had ever gone wrong between us. I didn't hug her back. 16 years ago, Mom had always said Lana was fragile, sensitive. I was the strong one, the one who didn't need coddling or concern. Even when Lana broke rules or cried her way out of consequences, I swallowed my bitterness. I let it fester somewhere quiet and small, but seeing her now, I wondered if all I'd done was make space for her lies to grow roots. Lana dragged in 2 huge suitcases. "Is the nursery still empty?" she asked, like it was the most natural question. She didn't wait for an answer before setting up in the guest room. That evening, she poked around the house, our house, asking questions about who paid what, who owned what, when Greg got home from work. Her eyes moved like she was already mapping out where to plant flags. Greg tried to be polite. He made her tea. I made excuses. Then came the moment over breakfast. She looked up from her plate, all smiles. "You and Greg don't have kids, so I think I should raise mine here. It's quiet, stable, good energy." I nearly dropped my mug. "You what?" I asked. "I'm 3 months along. Didn't I say that?" She blinked. "It's a boy, I think. He needs a real home." Greg was frozen. He didn't agree, but he didn't disagree either. Later that day, Lana turned the knife. We were in the living room. She stood near Mom, who had come by with a lasagna and pity in her eyes. "I lost one before," Lana whispered. "Remember, Mom? You cried for days. Marla didn't even call." The silence fell like snow, heavy, cold. Guilt formed like frost over Mom's features. She turned to me slowly. "She needs this," Mom said. "You're her sister. That baby's your blood." I stared at Lana. She looked back, eyes gleaming not with tears, but with triumph. That night, Greg sat beside me, rubbing his temples. "Maybe it's just until she gets on her feet," he said. I didn't answer. I stood, walked into the kitchen, stared at the pantry door like it might offer a way out. This isn't support. This is a siege. Mornings felt like walking barefoot across shards. Lana floated through the kitchen like she belonged there, humming off-key and sipping coffee from my favorite mug. Greg had grown quieter, withdrawn even, like he was trying to disappear into the drywall. Every morning, Lana offered to help with the mail, bills, statements, junk, always with that saccharine smile. "You guys are busy. I don't mind sorting through it." I minded. I caught her rifling through the drawer by the phone, twice. Once she jumped when I entered, hiding something behind her back. "Looking for a pen," she said, too fast, too sweet. I stared at the drawer afterward, half empty, oddly reorganized. Then I found the ultrasound. It was tucked between utility receipts in the cabinet, thick paper, grainy image, a name scribbled in the corner. Lana. But the handwriting? It stopped me cold. Loopy, slightly tilted to the right. I'd seen it before. Upstairs in the cedar box from childhood, I pulled out a birthday card from Mom. Same slant, same curl on the lowercase y. My throat closed. I pressed the two side by side. Perfect match. I drove to her house. She didn't even look surprised, just sighed and said, "Sometimes white lies protect people." "Protect who?" I asked. "You believed her over me, again." Her silence confirmed everything. My hands shook. That night the phone rang. Bank fraud alert. Someone attempted to open a line of credit using my name, social, and address. The transaction failed, thanks to an incorrect employer field, but it came from Boulder, local, recent. I stood in my kitchen, stomach twisted. The next day, I pulled a full credit report. There it was, an application for a retail store card, dated last week. The address? Mine. The social security number? Mine. I printed the document, each page another slap across the face. 16 years ago. She took my earrings before prom, my favorite emerald studs. Mom found them in Lana's dresser, but made me apologize for jumping to conclusions. I was told, she just wanted to feel pretty too. Now she wanted to feel wealthy. I didn't cry. I scanned every document, uploaded backups to the cloud, stored physical copies in the safe. Greg asked what I was working on. I smiled. Just sorting old files. That night, I sat in the car parked down the block from our house, the heater clicking and groaning. I stared at the ultrasound printout, then at the flagged transaction notice. I wasn't angry. Not anymore. They think I'm too rational to explode. They're right, but I am calculating. I dialed a number I'd saved weeks ago. "Hi, yes, I'm ready to schedule that consult. Divorce and fraud, yes, both." The phone rang just as I turned off Canyon Boulevard. Connie's name flashed across the screen, and for one foolish second I thought maybe she was calling to apologize. I answered. She didn't. "Marla, you're being cold," she snapped. "She's pregnant. She needs stability. Are you going to be the reason this child grows up without a roof over its head?" The words crashed like glass in my chest. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "She's your sister," Connie continued. "Don't you remember what family means?" I hung up. 16 years ago, Lana had lied about my diary, read it aloud at school. I got detention for spreading rumors. Mom said, "She's younger, she didn't understand. Be the bigger person." That phrase. It followed me like a curse. Even when I graduated top of my class, Connie had smiled and said, "Imagine how well Lana could have done if she hadn't had such a rough year." I never got to shine, only reflect her pity. Dinner was a war disguised as a meal. Connie brought lasagna. Lana wore a gauzy cardigan and a look of practiced vulnerability. Greg sat stiffly, unsure which direction to lean. I stayed silent until the moment Mom set her fork down and launched the real agenda. "This baby is a blessing," she began. "It's a second chance for all of us. Don't you want that, Marla?" Greg nodded vaguely. "Maybe this is what we all need." Lana looked at me with damp eyes. "I know I haven't been perfect, but I'm trying." It was theater. Everyone played their roles. Mine was being outnumbered. I said nothing, but I felt it. Another brick in the wall they kept building around me. I couldn't breathe. The next morning, Connie dropped by, just to chat. She handed me a manila envelope, her smile far too tight. "Just an idea," she said. "No pressure." Inside was a draft amendment to the house deed. My house. It listed Lana as a temporary co-owner. "For the baby's protection," the cover letter read. I looked up slowly. "You want me to give her half my home?" "It's symbolic," she said quickly. "You're not actually giving anything up, just reassuring her." Greg walked in at that moment, saw the paper in my hands, and said, "It's just a piece of paper, babe. It doesn't mean anything." But it did. It meant everything. I read the amendment again. Legally binding, not symbolic, not harmless, strategic. My hands stayed steady, but inside I burned. "No," I said. "I'm not putting her on anything. Not now, not ever." Connie's smile wavered. Greg opened his mouth, then closed it again. Lana wasn't even in the room, but her presence filled every silence. Later that night, I opened my laptop and drafted an email to my lawyer. Need to secure the deed. Urgently. As I closed the office door behind me, I whispered to the quiet, "Let's see who plays the better long game." I spread the documents across the dining table. Loan paperwork, flagged credit inquiries, side-by-side copies of handwriting, one from a forged application, the other from an old birthday card Connie wrote years ago. The match was undeniable. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was proof. The kitchen light flickered from the wind outside, casting long shadows across the floor. I stared at the evidence, pulse steady. No more pretending. No more hoping it would resolve itself. When Greg left for work, I waited 15 minutes before calling Lana downstairs. She came in barefoot, holding a coffee mug like she owned the place. "We need to talk." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Is this about the almond milk again?" I didn't answer, just turned the papers toward her. "This is you. You used my social. You applied for a credit line in my name using my address." She looked down, then back up. Not even a blink. "That's absurd. Maybe the bank confused something." "I called them. The clerk remembered your voice. You gave them my birth date." She tilted her head, smile gone. "You really think I'd do that? Marla, you sound paranoid." I stared. "I'm done covering for you. If you think I'm bluffing, try me." Lana set the mug down a little too hard. "You're losing it. You've always been uptight. But this? It's sick." She left the room, not a denial, just deflection. That night, Greg came into the bedroom, hesitant. "Lana's shaken up. She said you accused her of identity theft?" I didn't reply. "She also mentioned you've been off lately, obsessed with stuff that's not real." I turned to face him. "You think I made this up?" "She's pregnant, Marla. I just think maybe you need rest. Take a few days. Talk to someone." A knot twisted in my gut. She got to you. He sighed, looked away. An hour later, Connie called. "Sweetheart, Lana says you're hearing voices." I hung up. 16 years ago. College. I was prescribed antidepressants for 3 months. The bottle had my name. Lana saw it once, laughed. "No wonder you're always so tense." Now she weaponized that memory. I began recording everything, voice memos, timestamps, phone calls. I backed it all up in the cloud, triple encrypted. I no longer trusted my words to hold weight. But paper and time, those were my allies now. Later that week, I handed a sealed envelope to my attorney, the label, "If anything happens to me." They wanted me to unravel. They thought I'd fall apart quietly, but they forgot. I don't break. I building. I woke up to stillness. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that feels staged, like a paused scene in a thriller. The snow outside had thickened overnight, blanketing everything in white, but inside, the chill came from something colder than winter. The folders I'd prepped the night before sat on the kitchen island, each labeled in sharp black marker: bank fraud, identity theft, forged signatures, evidence sorted, emotions sealed. The house didn't feel like mine anymore, but the truth still did. I called for a family meeting. Greg blinked in surprise when I used that phrase, something we hadn't done since Dad's funeral. Connie hesitated in the hallway, clutching a tea mug, while Lana strutted in last, arms crossed, eyes smug. "I want to make something clear," I said, sliding papers across the table. "You have 72 hours to leave this house, or I press charges." Silence fractured the room. Lana scoffed. "You've lost your mind. You've committed a felony." Greg's mouth parted. "Marla, I gave you time. I gave you shelter. I'm not giving you my life." "You're going to ruin everything," Connie whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. I'm ending what was already broken." Lana slammed the chair back. "You think this makes you powerful? You're pathetic." No one stopped her as she stormed upstairs. But Connie's stare stung more than any insult, like betrayal dressed in motherly disappointment. That evening, Greg came into my office, holding one of the folders. "I'm not defending her," he started, "but she's not well. Maybe we pushed too hard. She needs time." She's had decades, he sighed. I'm asking you to step back for a bit. Just go stay at Rachel's. Let things cool down. I looked up slowly. In my house? She's pregnant, Marla. Stress isn't good for the baby. So your solution is to exile me while she nestles in my bed. His lips pressed into a line. He didn't answer. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. You have 48 hours to choose, her or your conscience. That night I locked the bedroom door. First time ever. It clicked shut with the weight of a boundary finally drawn. The next morning I changed the alarm codes. Every window, every entry point. The locks no longer asked for compromise. I found his note stuck on the fridge. I need space too. Going to Mom's. It wasn't even folded. I stared at it for a long time, pulse steady but breath shallow. Good, I whispered. That's one less traitor in this house. The sky outside my window had begun to thaw, letting sunlight pool on patches of dead grass. But inside the house, things were still frozen. Not from snow, but from calculation. I sat at the kitchen table with my journal open, flipping through years of thoughts inked in solitude. I'd written lines like armor, and even armor cracks if worn long enough. I was staring out the window when my attorney called. Her voice carried the weight of bad news she couldn't soften. Greg's lawyer submitted something, an affidavit, what kind? They're suggesting you're emotionally unstable, based on medical history from a decade ago. My spine stiffened. That was sealed therapy work. It never left my doctor's file. It did now. I didn't ask who leaked it. I already knew. There were only two people who ever saw that prescription bottle. One was me, the other was Connie. She hadn't just betrayed me. She'd offered me up as ammunition. They didn't stab me with lies. They unearthed my truth, twisted it, and threw it like shrapnel. By evening, Greg asked if we could talk. His tone was too polite. I smelled staging. I followed him downstairs. Lana was already there, flanked by Connie and my cousins Rachel and David, both of whom I hadn't seen since the funeral 2 years ago. We're here because we love you, Connie began. No one who truly loves you starts sentences that way. They each took turns reading notes. We've noticed your behavior becoming erratic, Rachel offered. You're very controlling, David added. Lana dabbed non-existent tears. I've never felt safe in this house, she whispered. My body was still, but every nerve inside burned like flint. I let them finish, then I stood up. If I'm poison, then stop drinking. I walked out before they could react. Let them sit in their echo chamber. Back upstairs, I filed a privacy violation claim against Connie. I opened my laptop and began recording. My version of events, a timeline, names, dates, documents. The camera caught everything, from my trembling hand to the unwavering fire in my voice. I'd let them gaslight me once. That was over. Before bed, I placed a flash drive inside a sealed envelope and wrote across the front, "Open if anything happens to me." Then I picked up the phone. You still covering stories on legal abuse and family manipulation? I asked. The journalist on the other end exhaled. Always. Then you'll love mine. The moment I stepped into the school auditorium, something shifted. The hum of small talk stopped too quickly. Conversations resumed only after I passed, muffled and sharp like a blade drawn half from its sheath. I saw Mrs. Elkins, PTA president and certified gossip, give me a glance that stayed too long. The principal caught my eye, expression unreadable, and said, "Let's chat after the meeting." I already knew. Something had dropped. I just hadn't been handed the weight of it yet. Later that evening, Greg waited in the kitchen like he was hosting a game night. A manila envelope sat untouched between us. "What's that?" I asked, my voice low, bored. He pushed it forward with a smirk. "You tell me." Inside were photos. Me and David, the head of my department, sitting across from each other at a cafe. Another of us walking down Pearl Street, cropped close, angled to suggest intimacy. "You had me followed," I said flatly. Greg shrugged. "You're not as innocent as you pretend." "That's my colleague." We were discussing a student who attempted suicide last semester. He didn't blink. Sure. I placed the photos back in the envelope. Funny. I didn't know paranoia was your love language. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. That night, an email pinged into my inbox. No subject, no sender, just an audio clip. I clicked. My voice burst through the speakers, jagged and cracking. A scream. Words twisted in panic. The aftermath of Lana pushing me into emotional collapse. I heard it clearly now. How unstable I sounded. How believable it would be. Out of context. Attached was a message. Already forwarded to your school's ethics board. I walked to Lana's room, knocked once, then opened the door. She didn't look up from her phone. You recorded me. She smiled. You scream like a crazy person. Maybe people should know. For a second, the air disappeared from the hallway. Then I said, You just burned a bridge you'll need someday. She rolled her eyes. Whatever. Back in my room, I called Diane. I need your help, I told her. They're trying to kill my reputation. I want to go public. But my way. Diane didn't hesitate. Start talking. I told her everything. The fake pregnancy, the forged documents, the manipulated photos, the weaponized therapy notes. Diane was quiet for a moment. Then she said, We'll do it right. Controlled release. But no turning back. There's nothing to turn back to. I sat down that night and recorded my side. No tears, no drama, just facts. Pain-laced truth, poured out like ink. When it was done, I stared at the screen. One last breath. Then I hit send. To the board, to HR, to every reporter Diane trusted. Let's see how they spin this now. The courtroom was ice, not from the temperature, but from the eyes watching me as I entered. I kept my chin up, my folders pressed close to my chest, each tab a blade I intended to unsheath. Greg sat at the defendant's table, smug curling around his lips like a defense mechanism. It faltered when I met his gaze and didn't look away. I took my seat across from him, closer than I'd been in weeks. But this wasn't closeness. This was war. When called, I stood and approached the stand with steps that didn't waver. I handed the bailiff my exhibit packet. Inside, bank statements, wire transfers, emails marked urgent, and authorizations that bore Greg's signature, most from late nights when he assumed I was asleep. Please direct your attention to Exhibit D, my attorney said. The judge adjusted her glasses. The number was clear. $41,920 moved from our joint education fund into a private brokerage in Greg's name. Gasps, whispers. Greg's face flushed red, then white. She's twisting everything, he stammered. That account was meant for both of us. Then why is my name removed on the statement dated February 3rd? I asked. And why was it moved hours after I filed the protective order? He didn't answer. Next, I submitted screenshots of texts, him threatening to ruin me if I went public. The ones where he accused me of being emotionally unstable, obsessive, and vindictive. My voice cracked once while reading, but I continued. The silence in the courtroom stretched, heavy and suffocating. This, I said, holding up the final sheet, is what I lived through. This is who he is. I sat down. Then, unexpectedly, Lana rose. Her voice wavered, but she didn't sit back down. Your Honor, she said, her eyes locked on Greg. May I speak? The judge hesitated. Greg's lawyer stood to object, but the judge allowed it. Lana's hands trembled. He told me Mom was unhinged, that she was faking everything, but I saw the texts. I saw the money moves. I believed him because he's my dad. But he lied. Greg shot her a glare that could have shattered stone. Sit. Down. No, she said softly. I want to stay with my mom. She's the only one who told me the truth. The room spun, metaphorically. Greg slumped, defeated not just by facts, but by the daughter he weaponized turning her back on him in front of the world. Outside the courthouse, the chaos began. Cameras, questions, microphones shoved toward my mouth. I said nothing. Lana gripped my hand. No performance this time, just flesh and regret. Greg exited 10 minutes later. No one looked at him, not even the press. The crowd parted, not for him, but for us. Back home, just before midnight, I found it. An envelope. No stamp. Slipped under my front door. Inside, one line, typed in bold. You think it's over. It's not. The house held its breath. I woke before the sun, blinking into the stillness. Lana was still asleep. Outside, the snow had thinned into early spring slush, dripping from eaves in slow, uneven rhythms. I sat at the edge of the bed, unsure what to do with the silence. Some winds don't feel like winds. They just feel over. Court had concluded the day before. I could still hear the judge's voice when I closed my eyes. Full custody to the mother, Marla Rowan. Financial misconduct from the defendant to be forwarded to the district attorney. Greg hadn't flinched until his own lawyer leaned in and whispered that he was withdrawing from the case. Then, that tight, angry smile. That mask. The one I used to believe. I stood outside the courthouse with Lana's hand in mine. Her grip was firmer now, not the wary, hesitant hold of a teenager, but something else. I squeezed back, whispering, "You're safe now. I promise." The local paper did the rest. Family man's mask falls, sprawled across the headlines. Friends stopped calling him. His gym membership was suspended. Small-town disgrace moves fast when the truth is finally loud enough. But it didn't bring closure. Not fully. 2 days later, I received an email from a publishing house. A senior editor called my story transformational, said it could help others, survivors, mothers, women who are always doubted first and believed last. I opened a Word document, typed the title, "This is not a revenge story." Then I stopped, closed the laptop. Not because I didn't have more to say, but maybe because I wasn't sure who I'd become if I told it all. That afternoon, Lana and I walked through North Park. The wind tugged softly at her coat. Kids laughed on the swings, unbothered by our quiet. "We don't have to pretend it never happened," I said. "But we do get to choose what we carry forward." Lana looked up. Her voice was soft. "Can we just carry each other?" I nodded. "Yeah, that's enough." We didn't talk about Greg. We didn't need to. Not yet. That night, while brushing my teeth, I noticed something on the floor near the door. An envelope. My stomach dropped. No stamp. No return address. Inside was a single photo. Greg, standing outside a coffee shop, wearing a smile I hadn't seen in weeks, dated yesterday. No note. Maybe what I've lived through wasn't about breaking. It was about bending until I could rebuild myself differently, stronger, wiser. I once believed silence was survival, but the truth is, your voice, no matter how cracked, can be your salvation. In a world that often demands women to stay quiet, to stay polite, to stay small, I chose not to. If you're watching this and you've ever felt dismissed, manipulated, or outnumbered, please hear me when I say, you are not crazy. You are not alone. And you are never wrong for standing up, even if your knees shake when you do. Now, I'm curious, have you ever had to walk away from someone you love to finally protect yourself? Or maybe you've had to stand alone to find your peace? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what part of this hit closest to home for you. And hey, if this video spoke to your heart, drop a 1 in the comments. Or just let me know what city you're tuning in from. If it didn't connect with you, I still want to hear. Tell me why, and what kind of stories you'd rather see. If you want more stories that reflect real struggles, quiet strength, and the kind of redemption that feels earned, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. Let's keep building a space where stories matter, where your voice matters, because sometimes hearing the right story at the right time, it changes everything.